Everybody out in Facebook land, we are back from being snowed in. We didn't get, 3 or 4 feet of snow last week, but about this time 7 days ago, we were all struggling with, 10, 15 inches of snow. It was pretty awesome. We got the day off, so that was a bonus. But that's the reason why nobody saw us last week. Couple of new things to go over and some progress on stuff. And we'll start off over here with this Chrysler Airflow. I don't believe this was here when we did the last update, which would have been 2 weeks ago. This is a new customer that brought this in for us to put the engine in it, put the harness in it, get everything working with the hydraulics in that and the drivetrain together so that he could actually drive it in and out of the paint booth so they could finish the work on it. I believe he bought this in a semi-restored state, and he's doing the rest of the work. Bunch of different parties involved in it, but Randy and Jarrett got the motor in it and got everything wired up. It actually runs now. So that's kind of a cool thing, and these are cool cars. It's kind of hard to tell what this car looks like without the fenders and all the trim and stuff on it, but these were pretty cutting edge design-wise when they came out back in the 30s. And if you want to know what it looks like, just Google search a Chrysler Airflow, and you'll see what it looks like. It definitely doesn't look like something that was out in the 30s. Not much else out here update-wise. Still, you can see the black and yellow Thunderbird is no longer in that bay. It's further up. The white one's not gone far. I'll take you around the hood and show you what we've done right there. This one, we got the shock absorber back. That's that street version of the Le Mans race car, the Austin-Healey M100 that we've had that for probably a month now. This we're waiting on I think the center section for the rear end, but we did put these factory hood locks or hood pin. This is a kit that they sell, which is pretty cool. And once it's in there, obviously you can latch the hood down with those as a secondary kind of latch. It's kind of cool looking. There's Jarek working on his vehicle. The Camaro, I know we had talked about this and looked at it because I was still putting the floor in it. Obviously the floor's done, the underneath is done. I got most of the interior in it, and then Jeff has been working on getting the windows and the quarter windows and the seals and all that kind of stuff, just kind of basically buttoning up the rest of the interior. This looks fantastic, though, relative to what it looked like when we first got it in here with the rusty holes in the floor. This is a couple of little odds and ends type things. Here's that yellow and black Thunderbird. And remember, this was up on jack stands because we were waiting for the rear end to come in. We finally got the rear end in from Mosier and put that back underneath of it, put all the front suspension back together and got it back down on its wheels and tires. Still doesn't have an engine in it, but hey, when the engine builder's done with that, we're ready to shoehorn that back in, and now he's got a rear end under it that will take all the abuse that he can give with the new motor. If we, this is kind of cool. This is the wood frame for the canvas top for that Chrysler Airflow that we looked at first off. They used to make this stuff out of wood. Actually, they used to make a lot of the car out of wood before they figured out how to use big presses and be able to stamp pieces of metal. I'll take you in here because this is kind of cool. It's the Speedster. There's the hinges. Those are the door hinges. And yes, that is Shasta white. And if you wander back here, ta-da! The trunk is now done. That is the final color for the inside of the trunk. So that's a big deal. Dave got that all blocked, wet sanded. Jarek just painted it this morning. So now the trunk is actually, that is final for this. The trunk lid on the outside will be that Pimlico gray, but the inside of the trunk lid and the inside of the trunk, as this car was put together, everything was on this car was white originally when they were assembling it on the assembly line, and then they get the work order and it says, oh, this customer wanted a two-tone Pimlico gray with the Shasta white roof and bottom. So they would mask everything off and they would shoot just the part that was Pimlico, and they would leave the inside of the trunk, the underside of the trunk lid, the hood, all of those things stayed white. That's just how they did it back in the middle 50s at the Studebaker plant in California where this one was made. So that's some good progress. We are still waiting on the front grill pieces to come back so we can test fit those. Those should be back this week. Once those are test fitted and we're assured that nothing has changed with the buildup of copper that they have to do on those to hide all of the changes that I had to make to them, then we can take the fenders off. Dave can do all of his magic. They have been these have been sanded back, but if you can just barely pick it up, you can see some of the red filler and the green filler. These haven't been slick sand, which is the high build primer, or final sanded yet. So that needs to happen, but that we don't necessarily need to do on the car because they can come off as a unit and get painted as a unit on the inside of the fender, underneath of here, and the inside of the fender well. The actual final paint for the outside of the car will be done with them on the car because we have to mock up the trim so that we can get our color brake lines scribed so that we know where to make the break between the white and the gray. And that everything has to be back on the car in order to do that. The doors, all of that stuff. So yeah, you got to put stuff together then take it back apart again, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So, but that's good progress on the Speedster. So if we head into the body shop, there's some more progress on stuff. Close that up so we don't get too much dust back there. Again, we've talked about all those parts and pieces for the Speedster. The hood, actually, sorry, as I turn around and run into Peter as he's following me. The hood, Dave just put the high build primer on. So that's 3 coats of the high build polyester primer. Then he'll sand that back, and then it will get 3 coats of the final primer, and then he'll sand that back and then wet sand that, and then it's ready for paint on the outside. The inside I don't think is quite ready for paint yet, but he spent all day yesterday working on the final body work on that. The trunk lid, this is final primer here that he's sanding back, and you can see where it's shiny. He hasn't sanded it. Where it's dull, he has. Once this is sanded back, then he'll wet sand it, and then this is ready to get painted. So this will be white. The outside will be gray. So we can actually paint it in two different steps, which is nice. Here is the 62 Hawk that we've been working on, and we found after we were mechanically stripping this that it had some issues. And of course this customer bought this car without having the opportunity to go through it with a real fine-tooth comb, and so I had to do some repair. There was some rust here on this floor, and you can't see it over there because Dan's covered it all up with dust, but there was some rust over there in the same place on that floor and on the sill and a little bit on the rocker on the other side. That had to get repaired. Now we're in a quandary here with this section of the fender. On this side it's limited pretty much to about here down is the real issue. But this is rust coming through from the back side. The other side is worse. There were previous repairs done to it that weren't done up to what we would consider our standards. But if you recall, this is the dual 4-barrel car that we painted the engine bay. So the dilemma is we've already painted the insides of the fenders, and we hate to have to take everything back apart because it's already been painted and assembled. But in the interest of doing the job the right way, we want to make the customer aware of these issues that we've uncovered. So ultimately it's his decision, the customer's decision, on what direction he wants to go whether he wants those areas that are suspect just kind of patched over and then painted, or does he want us to actually do a proper repair on it. We haven't talked to him about it yet, but the proper repair would be to cut off the entire back section of the fender and get rid of all of this bad metal that's in here. There's actually a double layer. There's an inner layer and an outer layer, and stuff gets trapped between and it rusts from the inside out. It's very common on the Studebakers. There's actually repair panels that a company makes that I've done. I did them on the Speedster. I did them on the black and yellow 56 Golden Hawk. So the metal is available to do the repair, but like I said, ultimately it's the customer's decision. Here is the Packard, which I don't know the last point in time where we were actually looking at this. Might have been after we just put the body on it. We didn't have the doors on it. Jeff went through before he started working on the Camaro, and he actually fitted the doors so that we have a reasonably consistent gap on both sides between the door and the cowl, the door in the center and the back door, and the rear and the back door. Peter then went in and put in all of these, the fenders, the running boards, everything, so that we could get everything mocked up and drop the hood on it, and that's where everything ground to a halt. The hood, as we have since found out, is not the original hood for the car. And this is, as I was stating earlier, they used to make a lot of the cars out of wood. This car, literally, the framework underneath of the body of the car is wood. And then they would hand wrap that with sheet metal. And they were really kind of hand-built cars. And obviously, if you've got a hood off of one car and you try and put it on another car, it may fit, but the likelihood is that it's not going to fit the same or even close. That's where we are with this. So we've had to take the hood apart and literally cut the hood apart. And as you can see, Peter and I have been working on this the last couple of days. We actually have, I'll pop this loose here. We have cut the hood loose from this intersection and moved this outer skin that direction about 9/32 of an inch, and then made a new cut that was straighter and made a new piece of sheet metal to fit in. This will get welded in all down through here on both sides of this and on the inside of the hood, and then ground back. You'll never know this was done, this repair was done, but what this effectively did was make the hood fit the passenger side of the cowl and the passenger side of the grille surround better than it did. Now, that being said, you can see we've got some tape here where we've got some excess on the front, and at the back, you can't see it now because it's all been folded over. This actually needs to be added to. So we have material that needs to be removed on the front, and we have to add material on the back of the hood side to get it to fit the body. It's just one of those things you have to do. It's kind of like when I was fitting the doors on the Speedster, and some places you got to grind it away and some places you got to add. It just, again, in the interest of having it fit properly, because there would be no sense to even paint the car at this point as poorly as the hood fit. So again, it takes, time. You got to cut things apart and put them back together, and at the end of it, you end up with something that looks fantastic, and people never know that you did it, but it's that middle ground that takes a lot of time. This, since the last time we talked, all of the interior pieces except for the rear console are now gone to the upholsterers. We did get some, oh sorry Peter, we did get some pictures back from Tom. He's been working on the door panels, which are those top pieces that had the little inserts in them. They look phenomenal. This car, the interior is just going to be so over the top beyond what anybody can even comprehend as far as the fit and the finish and the way that it's going to look. It's going to be fantastic. And we're all pretty excited about that. I have some more pieces that I have to do with the floor area in the back. If you were really quick, you might have seen the pieces of wood leaning against the front of the car for this. So this continues to get work done on it. Jeff split the hood down the center. I think we talked about that before. Split it down the center and then welded it back together to draw it in because it was too wide. It didn't fit the shape of the car at all. That helped a bunch, but then of course, he gets pulled into doing something with the Packard doors, and now he's on the Camaro. At some point here in the next couple of days, he'll get back here on this. I'll be back on this here a little, to get this back end of it done. And then here's the the fender on this side. You can see this previous repair was brazed in, so this was done a fair time ago, and we've got rust coming through from the inside out. That's what all these holes are. You can see where I've ground into some of these pits to see if they were really super thin. But ideally, this needs to all be gone, removed, and new metal put in, probably from about the body line down. The customer will have to make that decision, but that would be the direction that we would recommend that he go, because then that guarantees that all of the metal that is a problem right now is removed from the car and replaced with new metal. Then we can guarantee the work that we do and the paint job that we do. So,
is that why you do what you do? I mean, this seems like a lot of work to do over here.
Well, it's not why we do what we do per se, but in the interest of giving the customer a quality product at the end. And this customer is interested in having a very high quality paint job done on this car. There's a lot of wrong ways that you can do stuff, but not very many right ways. And ultimately, if you're going to guarantee the work that you do, which we do, it's not inexpensive, but there are things that have to be done, and there's really no way around it. Trying to go over top of a previous repair that isn't of the quality that you would do here, you're not going to be able to stand behind the work that you're doing. So in the interest of doing, you want to do right by the customer and make sure that he's getting his money's worth, but at the same time, you also want to do a job that you can be proud of. And you see this car out somewhere at a show and walk up to it, and you're 2 years down the road and you can see some rust bubbles where you should have maybe done a little bit different of a repair on it or paid more attention to it. That's disappointing. But if you take the time and you can actually make somebody see the value in taking the time to do the repair properly, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and the paint still looks fantastic, that makes you feel good, that you did the right thing for the customer and you did the repair the right way, that you don't have to go back and revisit it. So I would guess that's probably a pretty good explanation. So short of that, I don't think that there's anything else floating around here that we need to look at this week. Everything's been hit on. We had an extra week worth of time with the snow, so we made it a little bit longer of a video for everybody that was kind of bummed out they didn't get to see us last week. So we'll leave it at that, and I will sign off. Tell everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. This is Gary. Have a great one.